Welcome back. Today we're making a vanilla Texas sheet cake. The first thing I need to do is preheat my oven to 375 degrees over medium heat in a small saucepan. I'm going to melt 2 sticks of butter and 1 cup of water. You don't want to use margarine, you do want to use real butter. And while that's melting, I'm going to add to my stand mixer bowl 2 1/4 cups of white flour, along with 2 cups of white sugar. Now you can do this with a large mixing bowl and a whisk. You do not need a stand mixer, but I like using my stand mixer. And I'm going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, along with 1 teaspoon of baking soda, not baking powder. Make sure you're using baking soda. And once I've got that added, I'm just going to attach my whisk attachment, and I'm just going to give it a real quick whirl. And I just want to mix the dry ingredients nicely. And once that's done, I'm going to check on my butter and water, and it's melting nicely. Once it's melted completely, I'm going to shut the heat off, and I'm going to slowly add the liquid to the dry ingredients. I'm going to turn this back on low, and I'm going to slowly add these ingredients, or the liquid, to the dry ingredients. And you're going to see that the dry ingredients are sticking to the side a little bit. Quick fix. We're going to shut that off and scrape it down. And we're just going to turn it back on low again and just let it mix just a minute. You don't want to overmix it. And then I'm going to add to that 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. You can use real or you can use imitation. I'm also going to add 2 large eggs. And once I've got the eggs added, I'm going to go ahead and add the secret ingredient to this cake to make it super moist, and that is a 1/2 cup of sour cream. You can use regular or reduced fat, just don't use the fat-free. And we're just going to mix that until just mixed. And I'm going to go ahead and shut that off, and I'm just going to use my spatula just to make sure I got the bottom scraped really well and make sure everything's incorporated. And I'm going to pour this on a large 11 by 17 cookie sheet that I've pre-sprayed with nonstick spray. And I'm going to make sure I get all that batter out. And once I've got the batter out, I'm just going to give it a real quick shimmy of the pan. I'm going to make sure this is evenly covering the pan. And I'm going to put it in my preheated oven. And I'm going to bake it for 25 minutes. And at 25 minutes, it should be golden brown and should spring back to the touch, as you see I'm doing right here. So I'm going to go ahead and take that out and let that start to cool. And while that's cooling, I'm going to prepare my frosting. I'm going to turn my heat on to medium. I'm going to add 2 sticks of butter, along with 1/3 cup of evaporated milk. This is evaporated milk, not sweetened condensed milk. So I'm going to let that melt. And once that's melted into just a real soft boil, I'm going to take it off of the heat. I'm going to shut the heat off, and I'm going to add my powdered sugar. I'm going to add 4 1/2 cups of powdered sugar. I'm going to add 1 cup right away, and I'm just going to give that a real quick stir. And once I've got that stirred, I'm going to go ahead and add the remaining 3 1/2 cups of powdered sugar. This is not going to be a thick frosting. It's really going to be about the texture of a cook and serve pudding. So it's fairly thin. And to that I'm going to add a teaspoon of vanilla. And then I'm going to go ahead and pour this on top of my cake, which is still warm. I want to make sure I get all that goodness scraped out of there. This is just an incredibly moist cake. So once I've got all of that out, I'm going to use my spatula to spread my frosting. And this is going to spread nicely because the cake is still warm and the frosting is warm. And again, you see it's a thin frosting. Once I have this spread completely all over, I'm just going to kind of smooth it out. And I'm going to add pecans. You can optionally add pecans, you can add walnuts, or you don't have to add any sort of nuts. I like pecans on mine, so I'm putting pecans on it. And I'm using about 1.5 cups. And I'm just going to give that a quick sprinkle. This can be cut into either 24 or 36 pieces. It is a fairly rich cake, so a little bit goes a long way. And that's all there is to it. It's quick, it's easy, and it is incredibly delicious. And thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more from me in the future, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below. I am trying to post 3 videos a week, 2 cooking and baking videos, along with 1 randomness vlog. I love vanilla. I think I've kind of touched upon that fact that I'm not a huge chocolate person. Of course, I will eat chocolate, but it's not my go-to, generally speaking. I prefer vanilla cake, vanilla ice cream, vanilla milkshakes, things like that. But this is definitely one of my favorite cakes. As you see, it's quick. It takes about 5 minutes to put together. It takes about 20-25 minutes to bake and about another 5 minutes to frost. So you're looking at a really quick cake. It always turns out perfectly. It's not a thick cake, but it stretches really well, so you can make it for a large crowd if you need to. Of course, I add the nuts because I like nuts, but if you don't like nuts or you have a nut allergy, of course, those can be omitted. And I also make this in a chocolate version, which I will do a video for you guys in the future. But this cake is just really moist. Anyhow, it's just a really good cake. It's very flavorful. It goes a long way, and it lasts. You can leave it in an airtight container on the counter for 4 or 5 days before, I wouldn't eat it. You could refrigerate it a little bit longer, and also it can be frozen for if you mean to freeze it in maybe smaller portions if you have too much and you want some for later. But I believe that is about it for me today. I hope you guys have a great day, and remember, not every day is good, but there is always something good in every day, and I will see you next time.